thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Sally, for those of you who've not met me before or have not come across me yet with our Smart Families mission. So I'm the Programme Director here at Smart Families. I am the face of the presentations within our schools. I'm the person who puts together a lot of our content. I go and present to our parents and our teachers and our students, which is probably one of my most favourite parts of my role. And prior to this role, I was a teacher in the classroom. So to Smart Families, I bring a lot of experience of what I was noticing with my students in my own classroom and conversations I was having with the parents of my students. And so it's been really nice kind of intersection of these two strong passions of mine. And now this is what I do at Smart Families. I am also the mom to 3 children. I always love to share that I have a 9th grade son, a 7th grade son, and a 4th grade daughter. And so I stand strong and I'm unified with those parents on here. I know exactly what it's like to walk through this digital landscape and have, you know, children say, you know, I want this and I'm the only person that doesn't have this and this is so unfair. You know, these are conversations that I have often with my children. You know, just because I'm in this role does not mean I'm immune to these things, and these conversations come right to the family dinner table with me too. So welcome everybody. So today we're going to be covering this online talk on hidden dangers, specifically looking around grooming and kind of those online risks. And this is one of those topics when I was really reflecting on what is the content we want to bring to our talks that we do here online with Smart Families. I always feel like this is one of those issues and challenges that a lot of parents are aware of and they see a lot in the media, but sometimes we fail to realize how close to home this is actually happening. And sometimes we can walk through this mentality of, you know, not my child, not my school, like not my city. However, what we know is that this really is happening a lot closer to home. And so when I chose this as my topic, I knew immediately who I was going to go and ask if she would join me as the guest. And so Dawn from Elijah Rising is going to be joining us here today. She is on the call with us. And I really reached out to Dawn because she's somebody I became connected to through her work with Elijah Rising maybe about 18 months ago. And whereas we often refer to ourselves at Smart Families as the boots on the ground within the schools, you know, we're having these conversations often and frequently with the students. What I love with Dawn and her role with Elijah Rising is just the outreach and equally the number of people that they get access to speak to, whether it's through community events or directly with people who have personal experience of trafficking or grooming. And so as always with the webinars, I'm going to just talk through a few slides of my own thoughts, and then I will invite Dawn to really introduce herself and her work. And then I have some questions that I've put together for Dawn that we're just going to walk through. As always, this is recorded, so if you know there are people who haven't been able to join us, you will be welcome to share the recording after we finished. And please feel free to use the chat within the webinar. So if you have any questions or comments or just observations or, you know, fears or concerns, please just share them with us. This is and always strives to be a safe space where parents can come together and unify and really just have some conversations about some of the things that we are concerned about. So with all that said, Dawn, I will come to you in about 10 minutes. I want to walk just a few things just to kind of lay a bit of a scaffold for the conversation, because in my teaching experience, I have really had a lot of conversations with children to spot some of these kind of like grey areas. These grey areas or these, you know, just little troughs of maybe where they are more susceptible to being influenced by some of the media or the content that they're seeing through their screens. And so when I was researching for this webinar, as always, and those who know me personally know that I go down these very deep rabbit holes of research, because we always want to underpin everything that we teach here with neuroscience. And the neuroscience is often this missing piece of the jigsaw that is so powerful when people understand how children's brains grow and develop, to realize just how they're being exploited through digital media, you know, some of these platforms like YouTube, Snapchat. And so a core part of our presentation is we always teach everybody about the two parts of the brain that we really see are very relevant when it comes to risk-taking behaviors. This is the limbic system, this, you know, this go pedal, it's the go, 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 do it, because it feels good. You know, we talk about the dopamine, and then we have the frontal lobe, which is often referred to as like the brake pedal. It's the part of the brain that says, oh, slow down, you know, was there any risk associated with this? You know, are we going to get in trouble? Are I going to get hurt? And this frontal lobe part of the brain is not fully developed until you are 25 years old. And so a lot of these children who are utilizing devices and smartphones, what we know is they are being exposed to things that their brain development is just not ready to process or understand. And so it can get them in these risky situations. So I'm going to share my screen because I wanted to share something else that I've spent quite a bit of time researching to do with thinking. And I just wanted to really set the stage for Dawn about how I really believe that the way that children are being exploited through even things like YouTube Kids is creating a blueprint for how susceptible they are to people trying to coerce them or exploit them as they get older. So I'm just going to share my screen and I'm going to pull up, and then if one of my Smart Families team would just jump on and just confirm that you can see my screen, that would be wonderful, please.
We can see it. We have it.
Thank you.
We see it.
Thank you, Ashley. And as always, I always have my team on my calls too. Okay, so hidden dangers, protecting your kids from online grooming, and we'll go more into, you know, the grooming part and what it looks like, and it's like kind of these strategies to help protect children with Dawn. I just wanted to really throw a bit of neuroscience in at the beginning. So what I found really fascinating was I was looking at children's susceptibility to what they see, whether it is misinformation, disinformation, whether they're somebody sends them a message and tries to coerce them or share something with them. And so I kind of did a bit of a deep dive into these two systems of thinking. And what I learned through the research, and science tells us that children are actually not naive, like maybe people might think they are. They are actually quite skeptical in nature. And when they do research studies and they have these children and they show them, you know, images or things that can't possibly be true. For example, there was a study done where they were showing children a picture of somebody lying in bed and there was an alligator underneath the bed. You know, children will innately say, no, that's not real. And so they do have this ability to do that. However, what is actually happening with what they're seeing online is this distortion, it's diluted, this ability that they have to be able to be skeptical about the things that they see or hear or read. When we apply this to online, it just doesn't work as efficiently, and they find it far harder to be able to discern about, you know, what is real and what is not real when it comes to things on the internet. And so we have these two systems of thinking. So system one is what people do 95% of the time. This was something that was originally researched in the 1960s and 70s and has now become something that a theory that's been put together about how people think, and there are books on this and research. So this system one thinking is this intuition and instinct. We don't have to think about doing this. For example, you know, a child who is walking down the street, they don't have to think about how they're going to walk, they just will walk. This is why when you get in the car, you kind of sometimes feel on autopilot because you might just start driving to work. You're in your system one thinking, it's just fast. However, it's really prone to mistakes. And then we have this system two thinking, which is much slower, much deliberate. And this is kind of 5% of the time. And this is where we learn about critically analyzing. Now, children with their brain development, you know, they have these fully developed limbic systems by age 12. They are, you know, go, go, go on all the things that look good, feel good, smell good, you know, all these things, get them to drive those behaviors. So we really believe at Smart Families that we have to really help support children to access this system two thinking, and that they need to learn that what they see online or read online, or, you know, this message that comes, this inbound message from whatever platform, doesn't necessarily, it isn't always the truth, or it's not always real or fact. And so a big part of what we're going to be doing over the next few years of our program is really integrating this. Because what will happen is children with their System 1, you know, sometimes they're naive thinking that they will use this System 1 thinking and make false assumptions. They might think that the person who's telling them that they're a friend is, you know, really that maybe they are a friend. And so just an interesting place to kind of land on the way that our brains are internalizing and processing the kinds of thinking that we do on the experiences that we have. Now, when I was doing this, I have such a blessing in my life, and I feel extremely privileged to be able to go and speak to as many children as I do in my presentations. And so a recent conversation I've been having that has kind of helped me contribute to this is I've been speaking with a lot of the students about some of the things that they see online with the videos. And I was made aware of this type of content that a child will watch a video, and then at the end of the video it will say like or share this, otherwise, and then it will give you a negative thing. So it might say, you know, like and share this, otherwise you don't love your family. Like and share this, otherwise this monster will be under your bed tonight. And so I've been having this conversation across our school network and asking students, hey, you know, is this the kind of thing that you're seeing? And I keep hearing, yep, we see this. And so I have spent some time really reflecting on these conversations. And one of our key norms here at Smart Families is prioritize family. And the reason why that is up there as our number one is because I really believe that children's exposure to this kind of content where it says, like and share this, or this bad thing will happen to you, it's setting a blueprint for how children are being susceptible to, you know, people who predators or people who want to exploit them, if they've already been exposed to this kind of conditional behavior, you know, and this is happening on YouTube Kids. And I spent a lot of time this weekend on YouTube, and I would really encourage any parents on this call, you know, you might hear a lot about YouTube, but when you go on YouTube and you see just these videos, and not only the content of the videos, but at the end there's this conditional piece, like you must now like and share this. And so I had a child, and I'm just going to flick to this next slide. So we, our program, we are with, you know, lots of different schools, faith-based schools and secular-based schools. I want to use this as a specific example because this was the most recent conversation I've had in my role. And so I was talking to some students, and they told me that these are the videos that they see. This is AI imagery, which is this distortion of reality. Children are finding it harder to know which is AI, which is not AI. And there are these very realistic AI videos, and they will be of Jesus, and they will say, you have to like and share this, otherwise you're going to go to hell, or you have to like and share this, otherwise you don't love your family, or you have to like it. And so I had this conversation, and I had a fifth grader came up to me afterwards and said, Miss Sally, I am so glad that you had this conversation today, because I have been seeing all these videos and I didn't feel like I could block them, because if I blocked them, I felt like God was going to be angry with me. And so I really had this moment of realization that children are getting very desensitized to how grand a scale this is for early manipulation. They are being conditioned and formulating this blueprint that, okay, this is conditional. I have to do something, otherwise something bad will happen. And when, I know Dawn will maybe share with us, when we start having our conversation, you know, when you start to look at things like grooming and sextortion, there's this conditional piece to it, like do this, otherwise this bad thing is going to happen to you. And so I just wanted to bring your awareness to this is happening really, really young. The children are seeing this. And I mean, second and third graders have said that they're seeing this content too. I've asked my colleague Sarah if she would just put in the chat, there is a YouTube account that I keep hearing lots and lots of children talk to me about the content. There are millions of people, and it's called AFMAO. And so I had to go away because I had a lot of children say this, oh, these AFMAO, and that, and one child even said, you know, my sister's being manipulated by AFMAO. And I was like, who is AFMAO? And so I have been looking, and so you'll just see really inappropriate content, like really inappropriate videos. just the themes. And these are young children that are seeing these. So parents on this call, I really want to challenge you to just spend some time in this landscape. If you are somebody who is in support of smart families and you are delaying smartphones and delaying social media, and remember, YouTube is a form of social media, and even YouTube Kids is not a safe place for kids to be. I would just encourage you to spend a bit of time and have a look. All I did was start with AFMAO in the search, and then it started just sending me all kinds of content. It was quickly learning an algorithm, and it was sending all of these things. And so the one I've just gone back to on this screen, like say my color 6 times or I'll die. And you can see here in the comments are children who are doing exactly what they're being told to do by whatever is behind this digital platform. So I'm going to go back to the reason why we say prioritize family is because we really firmly believe that parents need to have these conversations with children. You need to be asking your children, hey, show me the videos. If you are watching YouTube videos, if you do have a child with access to a device, like just spend some time learning, like what is it that they're actually hearing and listening to? Because our adult brains with our prefrontal cortex that are fully developed will see things like and share this, otherwise you will die. And we'll see it's absurd, it's absolute nonsense. But children do not think in the same way that we think. And so for them, they really start to lean into this conditional request of them. So I wanted to share that. In terms of other platforms, I also spent some time, and I've just thrown these on here. This is beyond the recording if anybody wants to come back to it, and we can also make them available if anybody wants the slides. So Snapchat, and I just shout this all day long, like Snapchat is just not a place for children to be. And when they were looking at grooming, and here catfishing, so catfishing is where somebody will make a fake account and communicate with somebody from a fake account. It's not who they really are. I think around 50% of all of the instances of it can all be linked to Snapchat. It's just this really risky place for children to be. And when we go into our schools and we share with our parents, especially middle school, high school parents, like we know the current climate. We know that lots of children share, like this is where they go to speak with their friends. But what we're so excited to report is that the more engagement we're having with the younger families at the schools, we are hearing those children and those parents say, yeah, Snapchat is just a hard no, like we're not doing this. And even when I've been into middle schoolers have said to me, oh gosh, I had no idea this was happening on Snapchat, and so I think I don't even want to have Snapchat anymore. And so this is just the power of educating ourselves and understanding really what's been happening and going on. So again, this was just I just pulled out the most interesting statistics. So just really, if you could just pay attention to the high percentages of what's been happening on there. So 2/3 shared that intimate imagery or grooming behaviors were happening, and this was specifically on Snapchat. And I won't go through them because I know it's very wordy and I want to get through to my conversation with Dawn, but I'll just leave them on the screen if anybody wants to go back. And actually, sorry, these were actually pulled from Snapchat. So last year, Snapchat did their own survey. They surveyed teenagers on Snapchat to ask them how they experienced Snapchat. And so these were their own findings. And then subsequently, they said, oh, we're going to try and do this and we're going to do this. But ultimately, what's happening is a lot of really risky things for children and students. So, okay, I just wanted to show this. And okay, so Dawn, I'm so excited to introduce you now. I would love, Dawn, if you would just share with the people on our call today a little bit about you. Please explain a little bit about Elijah Rising and just how you came to be working with them.
Yeah, so I am the Awareness and Intervention Director with Elijah Rising, and Elijah Rising is an organization that combats sex trafficking here in Houston. And we have 4 pillars. We are a Christian organization, so we do fight mainly through prayer, but we also have awareness, intervention, and restorative care. And in all of this, education is a key component. We teach Houstonians about what sex trafficking looks like, the grooming process looks like, and the ways that we're combating it. And one of the ways we're combating it is through our intervention. And you guys are boots on the ground in schools, and we are boots on the ground out in places where women are being both exploited and sex trafficked. And so basically, in a nutshell, our mission is to help make Houston inhospitable to sex trafficking, because right now we are a very hospitable city in the area of sex trafficking. So that's our goal. And I think you had asked how I came to be with Elijah Rising. I was doing some ministry down in housing projects in Galveston Island. And that's the first time I ever witnessed sex trafficking with my own eyes. I, like many other people, I thought that was something that happened in other countries. And it wasn't until I saw gang members sex trafficking young girls in these housing projects that it really caught my attention, and that kind of made me go into a deep dive of researching about what sex trafficking looks like domestically. What does it look like right here? And I was just shocked to what I found. And in this whole process, a good friend of mine went to work for Elijah Rising, and she kept telling me to come and volunteer. And finally I did. And that's what my eyes were opened. I started going into these places where women and girls were being sex trafficked, and boys actually. And so that's how I got introduced to it. But it wasn't until I was an 8th grade English teacher in a suburb of Houston. And it wasn't until some students from my own school were being sex trafficked that was what propelled me to actually get into this full time. And that's when I took off my educator hat and came over to Elijah Rising, where I still work with education, just in a different way. And so just knowing how close it was to me, that's what really spurred me to become more involved.
Yeah. And when Dawn and I first met, we obviously connected with the educator piece as well. We've both been in the classroom and had just recognized and noticed, just changes in the way children were growing up and the things that we were seeing. So, I just loved that we had that kind of shared experience of having been in the classroom and then now bringing the education piece on kind of a bigger platform. So, I'd love to know, so in your experience, so how does online exploitation contribute to the kind of trafficking that you help educate? And especially, have you ever noticed anything or seen anything with regards to like young children or, minors underage?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Most of the women, in fact, I would say almost all of the women, and by the way, at Elijah Rising, we do serve women over the age of 18. I just want to make that clear. Now, we do encounter younger women when we are in clubs and out on the streets of Houston, but and when we encounter men, we can connect them with other services, but we're a smaller organization, and so right now we are solely serving women who are being exploited and trafficked. But everyone that I've encountered, everyone was groomed into it through what they say, through my phone. And usually it starts, well, first let me go back. Social media and video games, those are tools that traffickers use to groom and recruit people, victims. And so they use the internet usually to exploit images of individuals, including children, to attract sex buyers. And the way that happens is, Sally, like you were saying, they may be on some platform, whether it be Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or some video game, and they will build a relationship with this child, and they will coerce them to send some type of a photo, a nude photo of themselves, or a video of some type of a sexual act. And then they use that to further leverage it to exploit the child. And so there are so many websites out there that are just filled with images that buyers can shop from. And so it's being used by traffickers both to recruit people, children as well, and to make further connections with the buyers. And so, like you said, Snapchat is a huge one. Instagram is a huge one. Facebook, and all of these, what they're doing is they're advertising people for sale. They're arranging the dates, what they call the dates. I put that in air quotes, with the sex buyers. And so basically what I say all the time is that the internet, especially through social media and video games, it is a playground for both traffickers and for sex buyers. And so, something in addition to all of that, traffickers also control their victims through social media, because the girls will have an account, or the people will have an account, and they limit their access to it. And like you had said, they catfish, they pretend to be someone they're not, even the traffickers do. So they impersonate the women. They actually usually control it. So a buyer might be thinking that he is communicating with a person who is for sale, when actually he's just interacting with the trafficker. And so most of this, that's kind of the end result where the exploitation is happening. But it usually all just begins with a simple connection through these sites, where a trafficker or some type of a predator will connect with someone online.
Gosh, it's terrifying. And
It is.
a few years ago, before I moved to the US, my sister-in-law is a principal of an elementary school in England, and they had a child through Roblox. And this child, this fifth grade child, unbeknownst to everybody, had been talking to who she thought was a child her age on Roblox in the chat. And after school one day, she lived close enough to school that she could walk home at the end of the day. But on this particular day, she decided to get on a bus and go and meet this, who she thought was a young boy who she'd been gaming with for quite a long time. And she didn't come home on time. So then it triggered, like a safeguarding. She didn't come home. And they realized that she'd actually gone to meet him, and she had physically met this person who was in the process of taking her, but they were able to intercept, and she was rescued. But that was the first time, and my children were young at that time, and she had said, like, please don't let your children go on Roblox, because this is the platform where that all happened. And I was similarly at a presentation with some students, and I was just explaining to them, unfortunately, the way the internet is anymore, we can't always assume that anybody on the internet is who they say they are. We just want children to understand that broad scope. And within that conversation, I was challenged by, I think, a fifth grader who said, well, no, I've been speaking to this man online while I've been gaming with this man for, months, and he's really nice. And thankfully, as in all of my presentations, I have staff members, counselors in the room with me to hear if these conversations happen. And so again, it was just how people can think YouTube is a safe place, and Roblox is a safe place. Unfortunately, like Dawn, you've just also shared, these are target places where people will go and intentionally hang out to be able to gain access to children. And so I have
can I add? Yeah, I just want to interject. A lot of the, how schools issue laptops or tablets to students now, a lot of schools permit Roblox on their child's tablets and things, because it's mostly used by children. And so I don't know if they just think it's a safe thing to have, but I have almost the same exact experience with a family member that was being groomed through Roblox, but it was a boy being groomed by a female predator. And we were able to intercede, but intervene. It was just ridiculously crazy how easy it was for her to access.
So thank you for sharing that. And if there's been a lot of mainstream media attention on Roblox recently, I spent some time over the summer last year really looking into gaming platforms, and Roblox, they have areas or games with these are these rooms where sexual acts are permitted between these avatars. They're called condos. Like, if you people are welcome to search. So I think again, just parents being aware of what is going on, and often gaming can be this prerequisite to social media. A lot of parents will say, yes, you know, I don't want them to go on social media. Like, yes, we support delaying smartphones, but sometimes it might actually be the gaming platform that the child is using, and predators will go there. So a lot of, you know, just support for delaying things, and really educating and being aware of what are the games, because the games are so different to the games from when I was younger. You know, I always say to parents, these games are so different, and children will use them in a totally different way from what we use them. So I'm just thinking about some of the things that you touched on. I'm curious to know, you know, for the parents who are listening and, you know, who maybe are aware of how the grooming process, but are there any signs that you would recognize with it, with your own family, with your children, that maybe they were being groomed, or that maybe they were having, somebody had access to them?
Signs are a little more difficult to pick up on, especially in this day and age. But yes, first of all, I want to tell parents, be in your child's business, especially their online business. You need to know who your child's talking to. But some of the signs that are easier to pick up on, if your child becomes very secretive about their phone or about the video games they're playing, if they want you to stay away from those things in their life, if you see a change in your child's personality, if they become much more introverted than they usually are, or if they become much more extroverted, which is very challenging because anyone who has had a child go through the junior high years knows that that can change on a daily basis. And so that's why it's so important to just really know your child. Another indicator would be, are they less affectionate towards you? Are they more affectionate towards you? Are they changing the way they talk? Are they changing the way they dress? Just knowing your child and knowing how they have normally behaved towards you especially. And if that starts to shift, then you probably need to be investigating online. But I also want to go back. It's so important to already have been in what they're doing online.
Yeah, and I often share when I do my parent presentations, and you know, and I live this because I have a middle school and a high schooler. You know, they want to convince me that it's time for me to lean out. Like, they're grown up enough now. You know, sometimes there's this illusion that I need to give them this space because, you know, I want them to be successful and independent. And actually, we know from adolescence is the most critical time when we lean in, like even when they try and convince you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And believe it or not, children want you to do that. They're going to push you away. They're going to push you away. But, you know, I have 5 sons, and, you know, we pushed in during those years just because we know what's out there, and it may make them crazy in the moment. You know, they might not like it, but they're going to thank you for it later.
Yeah. And I mean, so these conversations I've been having recently with children who are exposed to this, you know, like and share this, or something bad will happen to you. You know, my next question is like, you know, did you share this with anybody, parents, teachers? And they're like, no. And so, and I say, well, you know, why? And they say, well, we don't think they'll care. And so, again, without having that very intentional conversation, children will just think that you don't care because you don't spend time seeing what they're doing. And so being able to, you know, have these regular conversations. We're a huge supporter of having family dinners, like having intentional family time where you come together and you have, you know, have conversations with them about the things that they're seeing or doing. And you also have to be aware, you might have a child, you know, for those people listening, who does not have YouTube and doesn't have a phone, but you know, they only have to go to sporting events after school, or you know, they might be at somebody's house and they might see these things. And so just being very proactive with having the conversations. And you know, that's one of the biggest things I say to these students who I see, you know, week in, week out, is your parents really do want to know this information. Like, I know you might, because they're not talking about it, doesn't mean they don't want to know. It's just we're
Right.
helping guide them with the questions that they ask. So back to schools, I've got two questions. So, what strategies or what methods do you use at Elijah Rising to educate the public about online risks? And another side question is, how do you think schools, parents, and communities can work together to protect these digital spaces? So,
Yeah, so at Elijah Rising, we have podcasts that we put out on a regular basis that are very educational for everyone, but we have some specifically created for parents. We have a tab on our website that has links to other organizations and things that can help give parents some ideas of just how do I navigate my child living in this technological age. And we also have our van tours. When parents come on van tours, their eyes are opened as to what the grooming process looks like in detail. We share a survivor's story of how she was groomed into trafficking, as well as throughout the tour, we talk about just how easy it is for technology to be used to connect with children. So, so I highly recommend if you want to know more about this. Our podcasts are great. We also have an online museum that is fantastic. Just peruse our website a little bit, and you can learn a whole lot about trafficking, the grooming process, things like that. Now, when it comes to schools, there is just not enough education in schools. When I was a teacher and we were getting ready the week before school, and you have all this, the teacher training that you have to go through for that week before school, when what you really want to be is in your classroom, but you're going through all this training. When we had a whole section entitled Sex Trafficking in the Schools, and we got one slide presentation, one slide, and basically it just said, yeah, it's happening in the schools. They did not go into detail. We were not trained. And so teachers spend a lot of time with students, especially in elementary school. They may have the same teacher all day long, but kids make connections with certain teachers. They open up to certain teachers. And so teachers are in a really good place to be able to identify if something might be happening. So they need much more education. They need more training. So I think the counselors even need more training. And then there needs to be a bridge between the schools and parents. It seems like in these it's very common now for parents and schools to be against each other instead of working together and having this unified, hey, we want to do what's best for the children. And so again, we need to open the lines of communication, and then really just bring in, have community nights where you can bring in smart families to talk about what is happening and how technology is being utilized by people who who parents wouldn't want their kids interacting with. And so Goose Creek ISD did a night like that where they had me come and speak, and they just brought in the community and said, hey, this is happening and you need to be aware of it. And so honestly, we need to get you guys in every school so that
we're trying.
Well, hopefully we can help with that. But because parents, they give in to peer pressure, whether it's from other families who give their kids this free range internet where they can just, come and go as they please, or whether it's from their own children. And I think that when you bring a community of people together that says, hey, I'm not giving my kid a cell phone, I'm not either, then all of a sudden you feel more empowered. I think a lot of parents are just caving in because, nowadays you have 5-year-olds walking down the street with a cell phone, or, sitting on the bus with a cell phone. And I think that, we're stronger when we're together. And so bringing that education, equipping parents, equipping teachers, I think it will put a big dent in the predators' attempts to get to our kids.
because I think I have noticed, and my opinion has been for a while that parents, um, really have this like they underestimate, sorry, the risk online and
Oh,
think
yeah.
that, if the child is home, that they're safe. And yes, I'm not denying there are risks and things in the world that are, that are dangerous for children. However, I think what I see is this underestimation of how much goes on like one of these things, and that, a child having full access to this gives a lot of people access to their child. So,
Yes. And in the United States, the actual percentages of children who are kidnapped into trafficking are much lower than what most people believe, because you see things on the internet that just, oh, if there's a green piece of paper under your windshield, then you or your child is a target of being sex trafficked, things like that. And everyone gets scared. And so they keep their children indoors, but then they put them on the internet where there's an unlimited amount of predators. One thing I say on our van tours a lot is I ask, Sally, do you have a child under the age of 10? No, you,
no. Oh, I have a 10-year-old. Yeah.
girl or boy?
Girl.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and do this with you. What would you say if I told you that on Friday night, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to pick up your 10-year-old daughter and I'm going to bring her to one of Houston's most happening nightclubs and I'm going to drop her off alone? And I'll yell out the window, "Goodbye, sweetheart. I'll pick you up at 2:30 when the club closes." What are you going to say to me?
Absolutely no way.
Okay. You were so nice. Some of the dads in the van that I talk to, they say things like, "I will snap your neck." And I'm like, "Sir, hypothetical." But what is crazy is it is safer, and this is according to another anti-trafficking site, it is safer for me to take your daughter and drop her off alone at a club, unattended, than it is to give your child one of these things. Because in that club, there's going to be at least one human being that's going to look at your daughter and say, she shouldn't be here. And we need to do something about this. We need to contact authorities. Whereas online, if you do not know who your child is talking to, what websites they're accessing, then you have no idea, and they can be connecting with your child, grooming your child, turning your children away from you, which is a common tactic. They find whatever needs your child has. So they ask very intentional questions, which a lot of parents aren't doing. So the traffickers are doing things. It makes the child think, oh, they're really interested in me and they really care about me. And they're asking all of the right things. And they'll, even ask how the day went. And when a child's like, oh, I'm so mad, my mom grounded me, whatever, they use that as a springboard to get deep into that child's mind and heart, so that they can win their affections and they can convince them that, hey, your parents aren't really for you, but I am for you. And that's what we don't want. And so I live right outside of downtown Houston, and I live in a not so safe neighborhood. And we had our kids in the suburbs. And when I went to work for Elijah Rising, we moved closer to where my office was. And I let my very young teenage boys ride their bike all over Houston. Because first of all, I educated them. And I know people are like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But I also know the percent that they are very, it's less likely for them to be kidnapped off their bike than it is for them to be convinced to run away from home or to go meet someone, through a phone. So my kids didn't get phones, but I let them ride their bike all over town. And so that just tells you how strongly my husband and I feel about technology.
Yeah. And would you also just mention, I know I have joined you at some of your screenings that you've done, documentary screenings. So I know that might be interesting for parents to learn that, Elijah Rising, and I'm not sure if you've got anything planned or upcoming, but in the past you have had those and maybe you plan to do them again. And just explain what the screenings are and what it is that you watch with the parents.
Yeah, so we do film screenings where we screen different documentaries that will either portray a real story of a trafficking victim or something we did one called Childhood 2.0, where it talks about how technology affects children's development. And really what we do is we just gather people together, we watch the film, and then we have a panel of experts. Sally was one of our experts. And parents can then, or the community can then ask specific questions, and we can address them based both on the movie, and then just when you take the movie and you combine it with just maybe some of your own fears or some of your own questions about, again, how do I raise my child in the age that we're in?
Thank you. So I want to think about, can you share any success stories or any impactful moments from your work, as a little kind of, we need a glimmer of hope after we've just heard all the things we've heard for the last 45 minutes. Any positive stories or positive impacts you can share with us?
Well, Elijah Rising, we have a lot of very positive impacts, because what we do is once a person is exploited or trafficked, we go after them, and we offer hope and a way out. Okay. And we do all that through sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we have countless stories of that, but some of the positive stories that are connected to what we're talking about right here is just when parents come on our van tours and they take the van tour, and then usually we have a debriefing session where you can sit with us and you can ask questions. So many parents, and these are like, sometimes we'll have a neighborhood and it's just some parents in the neighborhood, and they come in and they immediately start talking and having these very good conversations amongst themselves about what action they're going to take in their children's lives and how they're going to support each other. And for me, the key to everything we're talking about is prevention. We have to prevent all of these things from happening. By the time I meet a girl in a club or out on the street, she's already been hurt very badly. And it's our heart at Elijah Rising to see that no one ever ends up like that. So prevention, what you guys are doing at Smart Families, I cannot tell you how invaluable it is, because that is going to prevent things from happening. And so what my favorite thing, I'm kind of rambling about this because there's just so much to talk about, but my favorite thing is when I see parents get excited. They don't come on a van tour and be discouraged. They just say, hey, these are some things that we can actually do something about. And we're going to work with other parents, and we're going to, have this little community and raise our kids differently than what the norm is. And that to me is a huge win.
Yes, and I will just kind of echo that. We are seeing very empowered parents. I think, what I had seen from my own classroom was this kind of hopelessness, this collective hopelessness of parents who were like, oh, this is happening and I don't know what to do about this. And it was the peer pressure. It was all of these things compounded, and it just felt like hopeless parents and just this total disconnect. And what I get equally as excited about is, we go into some schools and they'll say, okay, we're already doing all of that. What else can we do? Like, give us more. Yes, we have so many people who are, like educating themselves and learning, taking time on a Monday morning to come and listen, to some really hard impactful testimony about, hey, this is going on right here in Houston.
Right.
And then they take that and then they don't kind of like fuel the hopelessness. They're like, no, I want to do differently. And then as our program, what happens is it kind of that ripple effect. We find those parents, we start this community, and then the movement it goes. And so we see that too, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, like when I said earlier that part of our mission is to make Houston inhospitable to trafficking, that includes y'all's mission, because if children cannot be manipulated and groomed, then that's going to help prevent trafficking right here in our city beyond. And so that's it's so amazing what you guys are doing, and I'm so thankful that you reached out to us to collaborate and be partners, because I think we make a great team.
And Smart Families, we've just put our request in to do our own team van tour, because we want to make sure that
Yeah.
as we are the ones going into the schools, that we also, we are as educated as we can be, so that we can relay this information to the parents. And kind of some exciting kind of momentum for us. We're in Chicago now, we're moving out to Wichita, like Dallas, Austin. We are so excited that people are hearing about our mission, and that we're able to kind of bring this to all these other schools and communities as well. So just I will come back to the talk in a second, the question in a second. Sorry. See, I talk all day long about notifications, how distracting they are, and I'm like the best example of it, because I'm like, oh. But just before we wrap up this part of the conversation, is there any kind of just statement or one thing that if you just want parents to take away from the talk today, what would you share, and what would that be?
It's probably, I'd break this into 3 parts. Know your children. Relationship is everything when it comes to your child. But I think it's so important that, yeah, you can be in your child's business, you can do all of these things, but they're going to have access to the dark side of what's happening on the internet, no matter what, whether it's in school, on the bus, whatever. So it's so important for parents to have that relationship, communicate with your child, that if something happens, let's say if you do get coerced into sending a nude photo to someone and now they are threatening you with it, I will fight for you. I will defend you. I will stand up for you, and I will still love you. And I think that that is huge, because a lot of times on my end of it, on the end where people have already been trafficked, that's how young boys and girls have been just thrust into the sex trade, is by, they thought they were talking to some other teenage kid. They send a selfie of themselves, and then he uses that to threaten them in, like, I'm going to share it with your school, I'm going to share it with your church, your parents, whatever. And then this person finds themselves being sex trafficked. And so as a parent, if your child knows that, hey, yeah, I'm going to be upset that you did that, but we'll work that out, but I am going to fight for you, I think less children would be brought into that realm of trafficking, because they say, okay, I might get in a little trouble, but man, my dad's going to protect me, or my mom's going to protect me. And so I think it's just so important that you have that relationship.
I love that. And that's, the exact sentiment we share when we speak to.
Oh, sorry, my son is leaving for
He had to give his mom a hug. We love that. We just to kind of echo what you've just said, that's exactly a core component in our student presentations, is that, we share, your parents want to know this information, whether it is just the kind of videos or the content you're seeing, and also that there's just nothing that you could do that could ever come between how much the people in your life love you, and like you say, and will fight for you. So I love that we've ended on that. And I just want to say thank you so much, Dawn. I think, I recognize that we are the prevention piece, and that you have so much insight and knowledge, because you see those children who are now have become adults, who unfortunately are in the life that they're in. And just so grateful for Elijah Rising and all the work that you do about raising awareness, and then supporting the women, or the people who you interact with, and just helping them to kind of remove themselves from that life. So thank you so much. Thank you. I am just going to check. I know somebody had asked about my role in Smart Families. So I'm the program director. I go into all the schools and do presentations where I teach children about social media and algorithms, dopamine in their brains, and we have great conversations just about how they can protect and safeguard themselves, and just to bring the neuroscience to them too, because everybody should learn the neuroscience, is my belief. When children know that how their brains are growing and developing, and that they understand that, sometimes they're going to make mistakes, and neurologically, that's because this limbic system, it actually helps them to regulate their own behavior. There's a lot of science and research that backs that up, that children knowing about their brains is a really essential tool to helping them regulate their own behaviors and mitigate some of those risks. So that's a little, although as anybody in our Smart Families team would say, we wear many, many hats. And so that's kind of the core part of my role. And I know, Hilary, if you want, I've just seen you've unmuted. I'm not sure if you wanted to jump on and share as well.
Thank you for capturing my hint. I just wanted to quickly thank Dawn personally for coming. I'm the executive director here at Smart Families. We're really blessed by this partnership, and for you to get on this talk for us. Sally, thanks for setting this up. I did have a question that I know, the majority of our schools at the current time are, private Christian schools. We have a few schools that are not, but the majority are. And so I think I'd love if there's any additional insight that you can offer to, the percentage. I don't know if there's actual numbers behind this, is where are children being groomed from when it comes to potentially not only just geographic areas, right? We know Houston is sadly a huge hub, but is there a difference between the type of schools or the type of environment and the type of children? And the reason I say that is I think personally, as a mom with children in a small private Catholic school, I potentially could be living in this state of incorrect bliss, thinking that, oh, no, this just does not happen in my community. That happens over there. And so I think from my education as working in this role, I've learned that that's not the case, but I often assume, we all might have the wrong concept of who's being impacted by this.
Yeah, so I don't have exact statistics, but I can just speak from experience, both as an educator and then being in the anti-trafficking world. There are indicators that put children more at risk. And you have things like child sexual abuse that's happening either in the home or by a family friend or another family member, chronic abuse, LGBTQ plus status, learning disabilities, poverty. I'm trying to think of all of them. Lack of safety, isolation, all of these things are indicators. People of color are more at risk for being trafficked. And sadly, those things are happening in both public and private schools, those indicators, right? And then and this is what I tell, we have a private school that brings their seniors on a van tour every single year. And we do a van tour and a presentation with these kids. And we talk about a lot of things, including like song lyrics and how they're grooming us because they're basically laying out sex trafficking or using your body to manipulate another human being. And they entitle their, they call it the tour, they call it the Bubble Buster Tour, because they said a lot of their students do live in a bubble where they don't think that these types of things can happen to them. And and I keep holding up my cell phone, when we start talking about this levels the playing field between public and private, rich and poor. I have encountered women both in clubs and on the streets who had they didn't have all the indicators that I just listed. They weren't sexually abused as children, all of these things. They came from great families. They were involved in their churches. They were, just normal everyday kids who trusted the wrong person here. And so I think that it's just something, we have to take into consideration. So yes, we do have, I'm sure that there's at least one child at your children's school who's being abused. And then that's gonna, up their risk. But the earlier they get this, the more at risk they're gonna be if you're not involved. Did I answer your question?
Oh, no, yes. And it without, I think, specific numbers, it's probably difficult to answer, exactly, but no, that was perfect. And I love that school is bringing those seniors on that tour. And I love the name of that, kudos to them. I think some parents might be worried about their child going out there, but really getting a dose of reality of what's happening in our back door. I mean, I think if people on this call were to do some research in Houston to see where's the hub in the country, where's the hub in Houston, you'd be, saddened to see how close it is probably to some of your community areas that you go about throughout your day, even potentially. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And I know when I first met Dawn and we were talking about her personal experience in the school, which I won't name, it was very close to where I lived. And I had a moment where I was like, oh, like that's very close to home. So I love that they call it the bubble buster tour, because I think sometimes there are a lot of bubbles that, they need to be popped and people can really understand the landscape that we're walking in. So I thank you, Ashley. I know my team member has just jumped on. So I go into schools who partner with Smart Families. So that we have our Smart Family community, and we have a very robust program, 3-year program that we go in and we work directly with schools to bring education to parents, teachers, counsellors, students. So thank you, Ashley, for jumping on and mentioning that too. But yeah, the student-led talks are specifically with the schools in our within our network. So, but again, we love to have conversations with people who are interested, just to explore whether that is something in the future that we could bring to a school. So thank you so much, Dawn. I just so appreciate you. We are doing this talk again this evening at 7 o'clock. It will be a live talk with myself. We do record this though, and if you have listened to this morning and you think, oh my goodness, I've got parent friends at school who would love to hear this, or just I would like, please share. You can go onto our website. It's www.smart-families.org/events, and you can go on there and you can sign up for this evening's presentation. But thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for being here and just your willingness to educate and learn as much as you can about all of these different components of parenting in this technological world. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day.